If we look at, the Mandal movement, which is one of the major social movements, which has taken place in India. One has to go back a little bit into. The report was buried almost for over 20 years. No media brought it out.
Until the years.
Yeah?
Years.
Yeah, the report was submitted in early 1970s. 20 years, the report was not even brought to light. Mandal has looked at in great detail the status of the backward classes, their economic status, their educational status, and then submitted the report. The report was not debated in this country, not discussed in this country. When Mr. V.P.Singh came, he said, he wanted to introduce the bill. He wanted to bring about reservation for the backward classes. And only that movement clearly indicated in this country which party, which group, which caste stood for what. Everyone came out in their true colors. Major political parties in this country opposed. Major political groups in this country opposed the entire implementation of the Mandal Commission report.
Name of the parties.
The BJP opposed it, including the communist groups, CPI, CPM opposed. They said, this will become India will become a divisive society. All universities all over the country opposed this. In fact, the major movement in this country relating to Mandal took place only on university campuses. The entire media, in their editorial, in their coverage, we cannot think of a single newspaper in this country at that point of time supported. All media in this country launched a major campaign, both in terms of their news coverage and their opinion coverage.
Against
several students have been fighting for implementation of reservation. That was not even covered. Small protests which have taken place in major capitals by a group of 10 people, 15 people, they were covered in a major manner. At that time, of course, there were no television channels, including Doordarshan, highlighted it. They were not allowing. All newspapers in this country, let me repeat, editorial comment, news comment, visual coverage, photo coverage was against. Not a single newspaper in their editorial comment. Several studies have been made. As a professor of journalism, I looked at the coverage which has been given to the Mandal agitation. 95% of the coverage was anti-Mandal. Only 5% of the coverage. That too, some language newspapers, entire English press, entire magazines, English magazines in this country, in terms of their editorial writing, are opposed to Mandal. So that's the major movement which has taken place in this country. We knew which group, which university, what kind of students stands for what. That's a major struggle which has taken place. For us to implement, and that got implementation started only 5 years ago in IITs, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Indian Institute of Management, Central University. Even that is being diluted now. The 27% of reservation is not being implemented. It talks about reservation both for the faculty and also for the students. Not a single university so far. And then, when it came for implementation only 5 years ago, they said, we will implement it in a phased manner. In a phased manner, they went about implementing. And then several universities have raised a problem saying that if we are going to be implementing the reservation, we need more resources, more faculty, more infrastructure. Even now, according to data, not a single university has implemented that 27% reservation for OBCs in terms of both faculty and students. And then, when we started implementing, they brought in this issue of creamy layer. They brought in the issue of a creamy layer. Then they said, any parent who is having an income of more than 4 lakhs cannot get it. Yeah, backward classes are socially and economically disadvantaged. They did not have an opportunity to study. And then, this creamy layer issue has been brought about. So when you look at, the Mandal agitation, political parties were against it. All mainstream society was against it. Media was totally against it. It took so much time for us to implement it. Then they said they will implement it in a phased manner. Sorry. Even now it is not being totally implemented, again because of the creamy layer issue which has been brought in. I'm one of those people who believe firmly that creamy layer concept has got to be abolished. Because when you're talking about giving an opportunity to someone, we cannot look at it from an economic standpoint. It is possible economically they may be slightly well off, but educationally they are totally backward. If you look at all the OBCs all over the country, which have almost about over 360 castes, many of them are not into mainstream industry, mainstream social development. We do not have any evidence to indicate that OBCs are owning any kind of an industry in this country. So in the case with minorities in this country, they do not own any kind of an industry. So we are looking at from this standpoint to get economic power. And in the process, when we have education, we will get political power.
So you in Mandal Commission, you were in HCU. How was that? And what
well, V.P.Singh came to University of Hyderabad. He was not allowed to get into the university. At that time, he spoke at the golden threshold. And majority of the students of University of Hyderabad opposed V.P.Singh coming and addressing the students.
And how was the other moments? Any good memory you have of that?
No, the memory is memory is we knew who stands for what. So-called people who are fighting for human rights. So-called people who are talking about civil liberties. So-called people who are talking about progressive ideology, quote unquote, progressive ideology in classroom were opposing it. They said merit will get
damaged.
Merit will get diluted. They do not have the right to define. They should understand what we mean by merit. Who? Merit means someone who can think rationally. Merit, according to me, is someone who can think logically. Merit means someone who can think scientifically. Merit means understanding the problems of the people. That is what an intellectual. An intellectual who cannot understand the problems of the people of this country is no intellectual to my mind. And those intellectuals are opposing, who are saying that great people were teaching in JNU, Romila Thapar and Sarvapalli Gopalan and all that. And JNU was in the center of opposing the Mandal agitation. And what was their philosophy? What were they teaching in the classroom if we cannot influence your own students? We thought that JNU was some kind of a radical university, a left university, but they could not. And who was leading education in JNU? All these forces were leading agitation in JNU, and there we had at that time only 15 universities in the country, central universities. Every central university in this country opposed it.
Like HCU was supporting it, no?
No, majority of the students were against it.
Oh, achha.
They did not even allow, as I said, V.P.Singh entry into the campus. Golden threshold.
Oh, okay. Oh, for implementing this.
Yeah. And you know how reservations are implemented in HCU. Pune Commission was constituted. Even now, in HCU, they do not have SC, ST and OBC professors. 40% of the posts, all over the country in all central universities for SC, STs are vacant. Even now, so they have not been filled.
One very curious thing is, when there is so much of opposition, but how V.P.Singh could implement it?
Well, that opposition was there for him, but he was the Messiah, he had the vision. He said, if we want to bring about any kind of inequality in this country, he thought education is one way. Representation of people is one way. He could do it. That's why he could not survive as the Prime Minister for too long. Because he did not practice mainstream politics. In this country, only someone who pampers, the dominant forces, pampers, the corporates, will be in a position to survive. V.P.Singh could not survive because he thought he was playing divisive politics. He was not playing divisive politics. He wanted to bring about certain amount of equality in this country and equity in this country.